Welcome to AskPsychSessions with Marianne Lloyd, where we ask some of the best teachers we know questions from you, our audience. If you have a question or an idea for a conversation, please visit bit.ly/AskPsychSessions. That's bit.ly/AskPsychSessions. All one word, all lowercase. And here's our next question.
Thanks so much for joining us today. My guest is Dr. Eugenia Marin from the University of the Basque Country. Thanks for being with us today. How are you?
Fine. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here.
I am excited to talk to you to preview mistakes. But before we get there, can you just tell our listeners a little bit about you? What is your research background? What are you teaching right now? And anything you think might help to set the context.
So I studied psychology, and then I did my PhD training with amnesic patients. So I did this neuropsychological. I have this neuropsychological background. Then I did a postdoctoral training with John Gabrielli at MIT, and I was trained there to use fMRI. And here also I started to become more interested in how memory research could help teaching environments. So we did a study about testing effect, which are the neural basis of this effect. So with this, I started to become closer to this area. And then I started working at the University of Basque Country, and here I teach a course of introduction, which is kind of history and kind of introduction to psychology. And then my main teaching course is memory, which has this cognitive neurocognitive perspective.
Great, thank you. So I wanted you to come today and chat with us because I saw you have a pretty new paper out that looks, it's a review of the role of making mistakes in learning. And this is something that I've been interested in for my classes. For students just in general, because we make mistakes. And I had somehow missed that there was a whole cognitive literature about that mistakes could actually help with learning. So could you talk just briefly about that work? And then maybe we'll talk about how it could apply to teaching.
Yes. So the first idea is that testing is a very helpful strategy for learning. But when you are exposed to testing, you commit errors. So the questions afterwards was how these errors can be helpful better than learning the correct input, right? So there are at least 4 theories that are trying to explain this. One is that maybe error could be a mediator that could help to recover the correct answer, or it could be just a candidate of possible candidates in order when you are finding the correct answer. And also there is another theory that says that error and the feedback are encoded in the same episodic in the same episodic event. So when you retrieve the error, in a way you are retrieving the context when this feedback was given to. And the theory that is fitting better with our data, but probably all the theories could be helping to this errorful learning, is that when there is a mismatch between the answer that you give and the feedback, then there is an increase in attention that is going to help you to encode better or deeper this feedback, right? And then, of course, not every error is exactly the same. In order to have error-free learning, it's very important to have a good corrective feedback, right? So the feedback should be it's better if it's meaningful. So it's not just it's wrong or it's right. It should be related with the part of information that is missing. And then if you could also go deeper in the explanation of what is missing in your answer, is going to be more helpful, right? Also, it's better to commit an error than just to omit an answer, right? Sometimes related with your questions afterwards, sometimes we say, okay, it's better not to answer this because I'm not sure. But what is telling us the literature is that it's better to try to give the correct answer even if you commit an error, right? And then, of course, if you are motivated, if you are if the material itself it's meaningful for you, it's going to be even better, right? And something that is interesting is that usually testing or the error for learning, all these strategies or types of learning are not very attractive for learners. So usually the idea that they have about this is that are less helpful than re-studying something. This is because when we re-study or we read again the same passage or the same information, we have the feeling of fluidity, everything is activated. So for us as learners, we have this feeling of that we know, right? That we have this information, and then when we test ourselves or we commit an error, in that moment we feel more instability, that we are aware of the things that we don't know, right? So that is giving us the feeling that we know worse, or that these strategies are worse than simply re-studying, right? So I think this idea is important as well.
Yes, great. So many nuggets in there to think about and remember for our students, because it is, if you're trying to fight kind of a natural tendency that we're asking them to do something that feels less comfortable than an ineffective strategy, that's an additional kind of hoop to jump through to get students to help their learning. So would you mind talking for a few minutes about how you put this into place when you're teaching, or things you've thought about doing and haven't gotten to doing yet in teaching? Because I hear you saying that, you know, meaningful feedback is important, but that takes time, right? So how do you make space or effort for implementing this in your classes?
Yes, I try to separate what is evaluation in order to grade, to have a grade, and feedback in order to learn, right? So in everyday classes, I try to give this meaningful feedback. And then when we do more institutionalized testing, I don't know if I can say this, what I try to do is after the test that we correct or we talk about the test in the class as well, right? But at the end, it's true that we need to separate the grading from the feedback, right? Because grading at the end is just a number, and they need the number, they need the grading, is important for them. But I think we need to build a culture of learning, not evaluating, right? Not assessing. So in that sense, I think it's important to focus on learning and to fight or to create the culture of the importance of testing, importance of errors, right? And explain to them explicitly this research. And I tell them how testing is important, is very powerful learning technique, how errors works, and also it's a fight against the idea of just pass the exam, right? That there is of course, students are worried of passing the exam and to have good grades, and that's something that I usually tell them to leave for the last 2 weeks. But during the course, I try to motivate them to be more focused on learning and what they can do. I try to tell them that they need to connect with not only with other the ideas that we are working on, not only with other areas of psychology or but also with their lives, to connect the things that they are studying, and so these are more or less what I do. I don't know.
That's great. I like that. The idea of getting them to focus on learning, which is not an easy task. It sounds like no. Where you are, it's not where I am. We can maybe hear from listeners other places that it's also difficult. So those are some helpful concrete tips and some helpful research. So is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners who are trying to improve their classroom experience, and out of the classroom, I should say, too, the teaching experience?
So the take-home message will be that testing is a very useful strategy to improve learning, and that we can use it as a learning tool in our classes, but also that we can promote for our students to use it during their own study, right? So there is something that we can say. And also talking about this building a culture, class culture, right? We can say it also explicitly that it's important to participate in class. It's important to explain, to ask, and also to respond even when we are not very sure about the answer, because as we are saying, errors are really a possibility to learn better. So I feel it's important, this culture, class culture change that we can promote as teachers.
All right. I am here for it. We're going to get you a reality show called Say Yes to the Test, I think, and it will be a hit.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time today. It's been great chatting. My guest has been Dr. Eugenia Marin from University of Basque Country. Take care. Listeners, did today's episode make you realize you have a question you would like someone to answer? I would be happy to take it into consideration and find a guest that can help. But what I need you to do is head over to our Google form at bit.ly/AskPsychSessions.